He thought he was playing me. But the real bet was his life.
My marriage was like my Mazda. It ran, but made weird noises, and I kept telling myself I'd fix it tomorrow. The thing is, tomorrow never comes when you're working 60-hour weeks detailing cars for people who make more in a month than you see all year. I'm Nick Halperin, 44 years old, and I've got hands that smell permanently of car wax and a mouth that gets me in trouble. My wife Renee always said I was too sarcastic for my own good. Turns out she was right about that, at least. It started on a Tuesday in March. I was buffing the hood of some lawyer's BMW when Renee called, her voice all breathless and excited like she'd just won the lottery. "Nick, honey, I need to talk to you about something important tonight. Can you be home by 7? I glanced at my watch. It was already 5:30, and I had 2 more cars to finish. "What's this about, Ree?" "Just be there, okay? It's good news, I promise." Good news, right. In my experience, when your wife of 15 years calls to announce good news, you're about to get screwed harder than a stripped bolt. I finished up the cars and drove home to our little ranch house on Maple Street. Nothing fancy, but it was ours, or so I thought. The mortgage was in both our names, same as everything else we'd built together since we were kids. Renee had the dining room table set with our good china, the stuff we only used for Christmas and her mother's visits. She'd even lit candles. My first thought was that she was pregnant, which would have been a miracle considering we hadn't had love in 3 months. "Sit down, Nick. I made your favorite, meatloaf and mashed potatoes." I sat, suspicious as heck. Renee hadn't cooked my favorite anything in years. She was all about quinoa and kale these days, part of her new lifestyle that started when she expanded the nail salon. "Okay, what's going on? You're acting weird." She took a deep breath, and I could see her hands shaking slightly as she reached for her wine glass. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about us, about our future." Here it comes, I thought. The speech. Every married guy knows the speech. It starts with thinking about us and ends with you sleeping on your buddy's couch. I've grown a lot over the past year, Nick. The salon's success has opened my eyes to new possibilities, new people. I've realized that we want different things, such as, I want more. I want to travel, to experience life. I want to be with someone who shares my ambitions. I set down my fork. The meatloaf suddenly tasted like cardboard. "And I don't share your ambitions? You're a good man, Nick, but you're content to stay in the same place forever. I need someone who can grow with me." "Someone like who?" She smiled then, and it was the cruelest smile I'd ever seen. "Like Eric. Eric Sloan, my best friend since high school. The guy who'd been my best man, who came over every Sunday to watch football and drink beer. The guy I'd lent money to when his car lot was struggling, who I'd covered for when he cheated on his ex-wife." Eric Sloan? "We've been seeing each other for 6 months, Nick. I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but we're in love. I'm leaving you." I sat there for a moment, letting it sink in. My wife of 15 years was dumping me for my best friend. It was like a bad country song, except the dog hadn't run away yet. 6 months, I said slowly. "So all those late nights at the salon?" "I was with Eric. We tried to fight it, Nick, but some things are just meant to be." I looked at her sitting there in her designer dress. When had she started wearing designer dresses? With her freshly done hair and her manicured nails, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not heartbreak. Not yet. Just a kind of calculating anger. "Well," I said, standing up, "I guess that explains the new underwear I've been finding in the laundry. Victoria's Secret's a little upscale for someone who's just running a nail salon." Her face flushed. "Don't be crude, Nick." "Crude? Honey, I haven't even started being crude yet." I walked to the kitchen and grabbed a beer from the fridge. When I came back, she was dabbing at her eyes with a napkin, but I could tell the tears were fake. Renee had always been a terrible actress. "I want you to know this wasn't easy for me," she said. "Oh, I'm sure it was real hard, sneaking around behind my back for half a year. Must have been exhausting, keeping track of all those lies." "You don't have to be mean about it." I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. "Mean? Sweetheart, you just told me you've been screwing my best friend since last September, and you think I'm being mean for commenting on your lingerie budget?" She stood up, suddenly angry. "This is exactly why I'm leaving you, Nick. You're bitter and sarcastic, and you never want to better yourself." "And Eric does?" "Eric has vision. He's expanding his business, making connections. He's going places." Yeah, he's going places all right. Straight to heck, along with you. She grabbed her purse from the counter. I'm staying at my sister's tonight. We can talk about the details tomorrow. What details? The house, the salon, the divorce. Eric's lawyer says it should be pretty straightforward. Eric's lawyer? Of course he already had a lawyer lined up. This had been planned down to the last detail, and I was the only one who didn't get a copy of the script. After she left, I sat in my kitchen drinking beer and thinking, 15 years of marriage gone. My best friend gone. Half of everything I owned probably gone too. I should have been devastated. I should have been crying into my beer and calling my mother. Instead, I was thinking about that tattoo on Renee's lower back, the one that said Nick Forever in fancy script. She'd gotten it for our 10th anniversary, said it was her way of showing the world that she was mine forever. I wondered if Eric had seen it yet. I wondered if he knew that every time he was with my wife, my name was right there staring back at him. I smiled for the first time all evening. Maybe I was bitter and sarcastic. Maybe I was content to stay in the same place forever, but I was also smarter than either of them gave me credit for, and I was about to prove it. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years and drove straight to Murphy's bar. It was 10 a.m., which made me either an alcoholic or a man in crisis. I was hoping for the latter. Lana Torres was behind the bar, polishing glasses and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Lana was 30, tough as nails, and knew more dirt about this town than the police scanner. She'd also been tending bar at Murphy's since she was 21, which meant she'd heard every sob story in the book. "Little early for you, isn't it, Nick?" she said, not looking up from her glass. "My wife left me for my best friend. I figured that earned me a morning beer." Now she looked up. "Renee and Eric? Seriously? You don't sound surprised." "Honey, I've been watching Eric buy drinks for your wife every Tuesday for the past 6 months. I figured you knew." "Every Tuesday?" "Like clockwork. They'd sit in that corner booth, all cozy and secretive. I thought maybe you were having problems and working it out." I ordered a beer and tried to process this. Every Tuesday, Renee told me she was having dinner with her sister. Every Tuesday, she was actually here with Eric, planning my destruction over buffalo wings and domestic beer. Did they ever say anything you could hear? Lana shrugged. Bits and pieces. Something about a lawyer, about timing. Eric kept talking about his big expansion plans and how he needed a partner with business sense. Business sense? Your wife's salon is pulling in serious money, Nick. Word is she's looking to open 2 more locations. This was news to me. Renee had mentioned the salon was doing well, but she'd never said anything about expansion or serious money. Then again, apparently there were a lot of things Renee hadn't mentioned. What else do you know? You sure you want to hear this? Hit me. Eric's been bragging about some big real estate deal. Says he's got backing from some rich doctor who wants to invest in car lots. Apparently the doc's got more money than sense and a thing for pretty entrepreneurs. A rich doctor. I filed that away for later. I was on my 3rd beer when my phone rang. Eric's name flashed on the screen, and for a second, I considered letting it go to voicemail. Then I thought better of it. "Nick, buddy, we need to talk." His voice sounded strained, guilty. "Good. I bet we do. Look, I know what you must be thinking. Do you? Because I'm thinking my best friend is a backstabbing piece of crap who's been screwing my wife behind my back for 6 months. Am I close?" There was a long pause. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. How is it supposed to happen, Eric? You were going to ask my permission first? Can we meet somewhere? I want to explain. Explain what? How you decided my wife was community property? God damn it, Nick, it's not like that. We fell in love. You fell in love? How romantic. Where did it happen? In my bed? Jesus, you're being an a-hole about this. I almost laughed. I'm the one being called a jerk? You're sleeping with my wife and I'm the jerk. She was unhappy, Nick. She needed someone who understood her. And you understood her right out of her comfort zone, huh? Look, I'm sorry it had to be this way, but Renee and I are good together. We have the same goals, the same vision for the future. What future is that? We're going into business together, the salon expansion, my car lot, maybe some real estate. We're going to build something. With whose money? Another pause. We've got investors. The rich doctor Lana mentioned? How do you... Never mind. Yes, Dr. Caro is backing us. He believes in our vision. Dr. Caro. I made a mental note to look him up. So, let me get this straight. You steal my wife, break up my marriage, and now you want to go into business with her using some other guy's money? It's not stealing if she wants to go, Nick. Right. Well, here's the thing, Eric. I hope you and Renee are very happy together. I really do. You do? Absolutely. In fact, I want to help you celebrate. What do you mean? I mean, I want to throw you an engagement party. Tonight, my treat. Eric sounded suspicious. Why would you do that? Because I'm a bigger man than you are, apparently. Because I want to wish you both well publicly, so there's no hard feelings. It was complete BS, of course, but Eric had always been vain enough to believe people actually liked him, and stupid enough to think I'd roll over and play dead. I don't know, Nick. Maybe we should wait. Come on, Eric. You said you're in love. You said you have the same vision. Prove it. Bring Renee to Murphy's tonight at 8. I'll buy drinks for the house and we'll make it official. I could practically hear him thinking it over. Eric had always loved being the center of attention, and the idea of a public celebration where he got to play the conquering hero was too tempting to resist. All right, he said finally. We'll be there. After I hung up, Lana raised an eyebrow. What are you planning? Nothing illegal. That's not what I asked. I finished my beer and left a 20 on the bar. Just a little public education. Some people need to learn that actions have consequences. Nick, don't worry, Lana. Nobody's going to get hurt. Well, not physically, anyway. I spent the rest of the day making phone calls and arrangements. By 7:30, Murphy's was packed with people who knew me, Renee, and Eric. Word had gotten around that something big was happening, and in a town like ours, that was better than cable TV. Renee and Eric showed up right on time, looking nervous but trying to play it cool. Renee had dressed up for the occasion, a tight black dress that showed off her figure and probably cost more than I made in a week. Eric was wearing his best suit and a crap-eating grin. I stood up as they entered and raised my beer. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to make a toast to my soon-to-be ex-wife Renee and my former best friend Eric. The bar went quiet. You could have heard a pin drop. These two lovebirds have been carrying on behind my back for 6 months, and now they've decided to make it official. They're in love, they're going into business together, and they're going to build a beautiful future. Renee's face was turning red. Eric looked like he wanted to run. But before they ride off into the sunset, I continued, I thought Eric should know something about his new bride-to-be. I pulled out my phone and opened the photo gallery. With a few quick taps, I airdropped a picture to Eric's phone. It was a photo of Renee's lower back tattoo, the one that said Nick Forever in flowing script. Eric's phone buzzed. He looked down at it, and his face went white. You see, Eric, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Renee's got my name tattooed on her ass. Permanently. So every time you're with her, you'll be staring at a reminder of who was there first. The bar erupted. People were laughing, gasping, pulling out their phones to record. Eric stared at the photo, then at Renee, then back at the photo. Is this real? He asked her. Renee looked like she wanted to disappear. Eric, I can explain. Is this real? He repeated, his voice getting louder. I got it years ago. I was going to have it removed. You've got his name tattooed on your body and you didn't tell me? It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. Eric's voice cracked. I've been sleeping with you for 6 months, and you never mentioned that you've got your husband's name permanently inked on your skin? The crowd was eating it up. Phones were recording. People were whispering and pointing. This was going to be all over social media within the hour. Eric stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. You know what, Renee? I think I need to reconsider this whole thing. Eric, wait. But he was already walking toward the door, pushing through the crowd of onlookers. Renee tried to follow him, but he turned around and held up a hand. Don't, he said. Just don't. I need time to think. After they left, the bar slowly returned to normal, but I could feel people looking at me differently. Some with sympathy, some with amusement, some with a new kind of respect. Lana came over and sat down next to me. That was cold, Nick. That was justice. What happens now? I smiled and ordered another beer. Now things get interesting. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls from Renee and a text message that simply said, "We need to talk. Now." I deleted the text and went to work. Let her sweat for a while, but she was waiting for me when I got home that evening, sitting in her car in my driveway like some kind of stalker. I parked my truck and walked over to her window. What do you want, Renee? What I want is for you to stop acting like a child and talk to me like an adult. I'm not the one who was sneaking around for 6 months. She got out of the car and I could see she'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged and her hair wasn't perfect for once. You humiliated me last night. You humiliated yourself. I just provided the audience. Eric won't return my calls. Gee, I wonder why. This is your fault, Nick. You sabotaged us. I laughed. I sabotaged you? Honey, I just shared some information. If Eric can't handle the fact that you've got my name tattooed on your body, that's between you and him. You're enjoying this. A little bit, yeah. She stepped closer, and for a moment I thought she might try to hit me. Instead, she just looked tired. What do you want? She asked. What do I want? I want my wife back. I want my best friend back. I want the last 6 months to have never happened. But since I can't have any of that, I'll settle for making sure you don't get to just walk away from this without consequences. What kind of consequences? The legal kind, the financial kind, the social kind. Take your pick. Her face hardened. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, we'll play it that way. But you're not going to come out of this clean, Nick. I know things about you, too. Such as the cash jobs you do on weekends, the ones you don't report to the IRS. I shrugged. Good luck proving that. I don't have to prove it, I just have to report it. After she left, I called the one person I knew would give me straight advice, John Kowalski, my dad's old partner on the police force. John had retired 5 years ago, but he still had connections and a nose for trouble. Nick, I heard about what happened at Murphy's. Heck of a thing. It gets worse, John. Renee's threatening to report me to the IRS for side jobs. Are you doing side jobs? Some. Nothing major, just cash work on weekends. How much we talking about? Maybe $5,000 a year, unreported. John whistled. That's not nothing, but it's not worth going to war over either. What else is going on? I told him about Eric, about the mysterious Dr. Caro, about the business plans and the money. John listened without interrupting, which was one of the things I'd always liked about him. You want my advice? He said when I finished. Shoot. Forget the revenge fantasy. File for divorce, split everything 50-50, and move on with your life. That's it? That's it. You're 44 years old, Nick. You've got time to start over. Don't waste it trying to get even with people who aren't worth your energy. It was good advice. Sensible advice. The kind of advice a smart man would take. I ignored it completely. Instead, I spent the next week doing research. I looked up Dr. Matthew Caro and found out he was a plastic surgeon with a practice downtown. Married, 2 kids, big house in the suburbs. His wife was on the charity circuit, and they were regular fixtures in the society pages. I also found out that Dr. Caro had been sued twice in the past 3 years for malpractice. Both cases settled out of court. There were rumors online about him trading surgical procedures for inappropriate personal favors, but nothing proven. On Friday night, I followed Renee. She told me she was going to her sister's house, but instead she drove to a high-rise condo building downtown. I parked across the street and watched her go inside. 20 minutes later, a silver Mercedes pulled up. The man who got out was tall, well-dressed, and looked like he spent more on his haircut than I made in a day. Dr. Matthew Caro, I presumed. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, watching the building. When Caro finally came out, he was adjusting his tie and checking his phone. Renee followed him a few minutes later, looking like she'd just been thoroughly satisfied. So Eric was out of the picture, but Dr. Caro was still in it. Renee had moved on to her backup plan without missing a beat. I followed Caro home to his mansion in Brookfield Estates. His wife's BMW was in the driveway, along with 2 smaller cars that probably belonged to his kids. The perfect family man, except for the part where he was screwing other men's wives in his downtown love nest. The next morning, I called Lana and asked her to meet me for coffee. You look like heck, she said when she saw me. I feel like heck, but I've got a plan. I'm afraid to ask. Renee's moved on from Eric to some rich doctor, married guy with a family and a reputation to protect. And I think it's time his wife knew what her husband does in his spare time. Lana shook her head. Nick, that's dangerous territory. You start messing with people like that, they mess back. Let them try. I'm serious. Rich people have resources, lawyers, private investigators, connections. They can make your life very difficult. My life's already difficult. It can get worse. I knew she was right, but I was past caring. Renee had taken my marriage, my best friend, and my dignity. She was threatening to destroy me financially with the IRS thing, and now she was playing house with some rich a-hole who thought he could buy his way out of any consequences. It was time to show them all that some things couldn't be bought. I need your help, Lana. What kind of help? The kind where you use your bartender network to find out everything you can about Dr. Matthew Caro, his habits, his weaknesses, his secrets, everything. She studied my face for a long moment. You're really going to do this, aren't you? I'm really going to do this. Then God help us all. Lana came through like I knew she would. Within a week, she had a complete dossier on Dr. Matthew Caro, courtesy of bartenders, waitresses, and service workers all over the city. The service industry sees everything, and they talk to each other. Dr. Caro was a regular at several upscale bars and restaurants. He had a standing reservation every Wednesday at Romano's, where he entertained business associates, usually attractive women who weren't his wife. He drove too fast, tipped too little, and had a reputation for being handsy with female staff. More importantly, he had a weakness for gambling. Every other Friday, he played in a high-stakes poker game at a private club downtown. According to Lana's sources, he wasn't very good at it, but he kept playing anyway. The man's got an ego the size of Texas and impulse control issues, Lana reported. Classic rich boy syndrome. He's used to buying his way out of problems. What about his wife? Helen Caro, 45, comes from old money, very involved in charity work. Word is she's got a temper and doesn't tolerate disrespect. Perfect. Nick, I'm begging you to think about this. These people aren't like us. They don't fight fair. Neither do I, apparently. I spent the next few days planning. The key was to make it look accidental, like a series of unfortunate coincidences, rather than a coordinated attack. Rich people might have resources, but they also had reputations to protect. My first move was simple. I printed out photos of Renee entering and leaving the condo building, along with shots of Caro's Mercedes in the parking garage. Nothing illegal about taking pictures on a public street. Then I mailed them anonymously to Helen Caro. I didn't have to wait long for results. 2 days later, Lana called me at work. "Turn on Channel 7 News," she said. I found a TV in the break room and tuned in just in time to catch the tail end of a story about a domestic disturbance at a downtown condo building. The reporter was standing in front of the same high-rise where I'd followed Renee, and there were police cars in the background. Resulted in significant property damage, but no injuries. Police say the incident involved a dispute between a married couple, but no charges have been filed. The camera panned across the building's entrance, where I could see broken glass and what looked like the remains of a potted plant. My phone rang. It was Renee, and she was furious. "What did you do?" "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me, Nick. Someone sent photos to Matt's wife. She showed up at the condo and went completely crazy." "That's terrible. Is everyone okay?" "She threw a lamp through the window. The police came." "Wow. Sounds like she has anger management issues." "This was you. I know it was you. Renee, I've been working all day. I've got witnesses. You're going to pay for this, Nick. Matt is furious. He says you're going to be sorry you ever messed with him." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." She hung up, but I was smiling. Round 1 to me. Round 2 came 3 days later. I'd been doing some research on Dr. Caro's business practices, and I'd found something interesting. His clinic had been cited twice by the state medical board for improper record-keeping and questionable billing practices. Nothing major, but enough to suggest he was cutting corners. I also discovered that he was prescribing an unusual amount of pain medication, particularly to female patients. It might have been legitimate, but it was worth looking into. I made an anonymous call to the state medical board, suggesting they might want to audit Dr. Caro's prescription records. I didn't make any specific accusations, just expressed concern about potential irregularities. The audit notice arrived at his clinic the next day. Round 3 was more personal. I'd learned that Dr. Caro's teenage daughter was applying to colleges, and he'd been bragging at the country club about her acceptance to several prestigious schools. What he hadn't mentioned was that he'd made substantial donations to those schools right around the time his daughter applied. Again, nothing illegal, but it might be embarrassing if it became public knowledge, especially since he'd been very vocal in the local paper about the importance of merit-based admissions. I didn't have to do anything with this information. I just made sure that certain people knew I had it. By the end of the week, Dr. Caro was feeling the pressure. His wife had moved out, his medical practice was under scrutiny, and rumors were circulating about his personal life. He was also, according to Lana's sources, drinking heavily and making threats about that crazy bastard who's trying to ruin me. Which is when he made his first mistake. I was leaving work on Friday evening when a black SUV pulled up beside my truck. The window rolled down, and I found myself looking at a man I didn't recognize, big, muscular, with a kind of face that had been rearranged a few times. You Nick Halperin? Depends who's asking. I'm asking. Get in the car. I don't think so. He opened his door and started to get out. Wasn't a request. I looked around the parking lot. There were still a few people around, but not many. My boss had already left, and most of the other guys had gone home. What do you want? My employer wants to have a conversation with you. Your employer can call me and make an appointment. He tried that. You didn't answer. That was true. I'd been ignoring calls from unknown numbers all week. The man took a step closer. Look, we can do this easy or we can do it hard, but we're going to do it. I considered my options. I could try to run, but he was younger and probably faster. I could try to fight, but he outweighed me by 50 pounds and looked like he knew how to use it. Or I could get in the car and see what Dr. Caro wanted. 5 minutes, I said. Smart choice. The SUV was luxury all the way. Leather seats, tinted windows, the works. Dr. Caro was sitting in the back, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past week. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his expensive suit was wrinkled. Mr. Halperin, thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I didn't agree to anything. Your boy there made it pretty clear I didn't have a choice. I apologize for Marcus's directness, but you've been avoiding my calls. I've been busy. Yes, I'm sure you have. Busy destroying my life. I don't know what you're talking about. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Please, we both know you're the one who sent those photos to my wife. You're the one who called the medical board. You're the one spreading rumors about my family. Prove it. I don't have to prove it. I know it, you know it, and that's enough. The SUV was moving through downtown traffic, but I couldn't see where we were going through the tinted windows. What do you want, Dr. Caro? I want you to stop. I want you to leave me alone, leave my family alone, and go back to your pathetic little life. And if I don't, then things will get very unpleasant for you. I have resources, Mr. Halperin. I have connections. I can make your life very difficult. You can try. I can do more than try. I can have you audited by the IRS. I can have your business license revoked. I can have you arrested for stalking and harassment. On what evidence? I'll manufacture evidence if I have to. Now we were getting somewhere. Are you threatening me, doctor? I'm promising you. Back off or I'll destroy you. The SUV pulled over to the curb and Marcus turned around. End of the line. I got out and found myself standing on a street corner about 10 blocks from where they'd picked me up. The SUV pulled away, leaving me to walk back to my truck. But I was smiling because Dr. Caro had just made his second mistake. He'd threatened me in front of a witness. And I'd recorded every word of it on my phone. The recording of Dr. Caro's threats was gold, but I needed to be smart about how I used it. Going to the police would just be his word against mine, and rich doctors tend to have more credibility than unemployed car detailers. Instead, I decided to go public. I called the local newspaper and asked to speak to their investigative reporter. Her name was Sarah Chen, and she had a reputation for taking down corrupt officials and crooked businessmen. I've got a story for you, I told her. A prominent local doctor who's been using his position to prey on vulnerable women, and who's now making threats to cover it up. I'm listening. I played her the recording of my conversation with Dr. Caro. I showed her the photos of him and Renee at the condo. I gave her copies of the medical board citations and the prescription records I'd obtained through public records requests. This is interesting, she said when I finished. But I'll need to verify everything independently, and I'll need more sources. I can get you sources. And I could. Lana's network had turned up 3 other women who'd had relationships with Dr. Caro, patients who'd been offered reduced rates on procedures in exchange for personal favors. None of them had been willing to go public before, but the recording of his threats changed their minds. It took 2 weeks, but Sarah Chen's story ran on the front page of the Sunday paper. Local doctor accused of inappropriate conduct makes threats to silence critics. The story had everything: the affairs, the questionable prescriptions, the medical board violations, and the recording of Dr. Caro threatening me. It was devastating. By Monday morning, Dr. Caro's medical practice had lost half its staff. By Tuesday, his wife had filed for divorce. By Wednesday, the state medical board had suspended his license pending a full investigation. But the best part came on Thursday, when I got a call from Eric. Nick, we need to talk. I thought we already talked. Not about Renee. About the business deal, the one with Dr. Caro. I'd almost forgotten about that. What about it? He was supposed to invest $200,000 in my car lot expansion. The contracts were already signed. And his assets are frozen pending the divorce proceedings. The deal's dead. I'm out the money I already spent on preparations, and I've got creditors calling every day. I tried to sound sympathetic. That's rough, Eric. I know you did this. I know you destroyed him to get back at me and Renee. That's a serious accusation. It's not an accusation. It's a fact. And now I'm going to lose everything because of your revenge fantasy. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to screw my wife. God damn it, Nick. No, Eric, you don't get to be angry. You don't get to be the victim here. You betrayed me, and now you're facing the consequences. Deal with it. I hung up on him, but I wasn't done yet, because there was still Renee to deal with. She'd been laying low since the newspaper story broke, probably hoping the whole thing would blow over. But I had one more card to play. I'd been doing some digging into her salon's finances, and I'd found some interesting discrepancies. She'd been reporting significantly less income than she was actually making, and she'd been paying several employees under the table to avoid payroll taxes. It wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was enough to get the attention of the state tax authority. And unlike the IRS, the state moved quickly on these things. I made another anonymous call, this time to the State Revenue Department. I provided them with copies of bank records, receipts, and employee statements that I'd obtained through various means. The audit notice arrived at Renee's salon the following week, but my real masterstroke was yet to come. I'd learned that Renee was planning to attend a charity gala at the Marriott downtown, a big society event where she could network with potential investors for her salon expansion. She'd bought a $1,000 dress for the occasion and had been talking it up on social media for weeks. What she didn't know was that Helen Caro, Dr. Caro's soon-to-be ex-wife, was also planning to attend. And Helen had seen the photos of Renee and her husband together. I made sure they'd be seated at tables right next to each other. The confrontation happened during the cocktail hour before dinner was even served. I wasn't there to see it, but according to the dozen people who recorded it on their phones, it was spectacular. Helen Caro walked up to Renee at the bar and threw a martini in her face, then started screaming about home-wrecking traitors and gold-digging opportunists. Renee tried to defend herself, but Helen was beyond reason. Security eventually broke it up, but not before both women had been thrown out of the hotel. The videos were all over social media within hours, and by the next morning, they'd been picked up by the local news stations. Renee's reputation was destroyed. Her salon lost most of its upscale clientele, her expansion plans fell through, and she became a pariah in the social circles she'd worked so hard to infiltrate. 3 months later, she filed for bankruptcy. Eric lost his car lot and had to take a job selling insurance. Dr. Caro's medical license was permanently revoked, and he moved to another state to start over. As for me, I kept my job detailing cars, kept my house, and kept my dignity. I never did get audited by the IRS. Renee's threats had been empty, just like everything else about her. I also started dating Lana, who turned out to be everything Renee wasn't. Honest, loyal, and smart enough to appreciate a man who knew how to fight back when cornered. 6 months after it all started, I was at Murphy's bar celebrating my birthday when Eric walked in. He looked terrible, thin, tired, defeated. He saw me and started to turn around, but I called out to him. "Eric, come here." He walked over reluctantly, like a man approaching his own execution. "Sit down," I said. "Let me buy you a drink." He sat, suspicious. "Why?" "Because I want to tell you something." I ordered him a beer and waited until Lana brought it over. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said. "If you'd just been honest with me from the beginning, if you'd come to me and said you had feelings for Renee, we might have worked something out. Maybe we could have stayed friends. You would have let me have her." "Heck no. But I would have respected you for being straight with me. Instead, you snuck around behind my back for 6 months, making me look like a fool." "I'm sorry, Nick. I really am." "I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't give me back the 15 years I wasted on a woman who didn't love me. Sorry doesn't give me back the friend I thought I had." I finished my beer and stood up. "But here's the thing, Eric. I'm not sorry. Not anymore. Because you and Renee taught me something important. You taught me that I'm stronger than I thought I was. You taught me that I don't have to be a victim. You taught me that sometimes when someone pushes you, you push back harder." I put a 20 on the bar and headed for the door. "Nick," Eric called after me. "Are we ever going to be okay?" I turned around and looked at him one last time. This man who'd been my best friend for 25 years, who'd stood up at my wedding, who'd helped me move into my first house. No, Eric, we're never going to be okay, but we're done now. You can't hurt me anymore, and I don't need to hurt you. We're even. I walked out into the night air where Lana was waiting by my truck. How do you feel? She asked. Like I can finally breathe again. And for the first time in months, that was the absolute truth. When the underdog finally bites back, it leaves marks that never heal. But sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen.